So today, I just want to have a recap of incremental pipeline design in Data Factory. So let's go over the theory. The theory is like this. For incremental pipeline design, what are the prerequisites? Prerequisites, you need your primary key, modified date field, and as as long as you don't care for deleted records, then you are good. Like you could go with this approach if you only need to get the inserted updated records, then this approach will work. If no, the below approach. But if yes, need to explore a change data capture approach, which is change data capture approach is a little bit beyond the scope of this session right now. So what's there are two ways I discussed last class to design an incremental pipeline. The first way is, which I think is one of the easiest way, is first, as long as you have identified your, you could say they call it the last modified date field, or a field that you can use to know when records change. Sometimes they call it watermark field. As long as you have identified that, you can use that to basically, sorry, basically based on that field, you can figure out a way to filter the source data using the max value of the target table. So again, what are we doing? Step one is to get the incremental records, right? Like the records that changed since the last time you extracted the data. And to do that, how do you do that? You can get the max value of your target, right? And get that max value of the last modified date, whatever date is the max in that target table, you can use that to filter your source records. And that will give you what have changed since the last time you ran the pipeline. I hope that makes sense for step one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Step two is once you have filtered got the incremental records, you load it into a staging table, and once you load it into a staging table, you apply your merge offset into your target table. And I've explained why staging table, because it's efficient, because allows you to do the merge statement easily. Merge statement is faster, and there's just the speed of processing. Doing things in SQL is a lot faster than doing it in the ETL2. And then you don't have a memory limitation. Here's a nice, diagram that is not so nice, but showing the architecture. And So let me show you that in the screen. So when I create the incremental pipeline, so let me show you that. The first step is to here's the first design. Capture the ETL cutoff date. Right? Capture the ETL cutoff date. So this is where I'm getting the max of the target table. So I use a lookup activity. So let me just create a new pipeline. That way, when you are watching this, you don't miss anything. So let me create again, incremental pipeline design one. So this is how to do it in DataFactory. Again, this is only works if you don't have any deleted records and you just care to get the incremental for instance and update. So first thing is, let's get a ETL cutoff date. How do we get an ETL cutoff date? We get the max value from the target table. I already have my target table. My target table is a SQL database. 1 second. My target table is a SQL database. So, that is something you guys have created already. And I'm using the sample database that Azure created has for us. So while that is loading, I will just get the target. I'll get the lookup activity. So what activity do I need? I need the lookup activity because I'm trying to look up something. I'm trying to run a statement, a query against the source database. And then once I run that query, I'm trying to save that output into what? A variable in the DataFactory. I'm trying to capture that ETL, the max value from the target table into a variable in the DataFactory. So it's the same thing I'm saying here. The capture So this approach that I'm showing you, it will work even if your target database is sitting in, let's say, another like Oracle database or some other database that is not SQL, Azure SQL. For this demo, right, you guys know, like, I'm just using the Azure SQL database, which is the same thing as our source. I didn't have to necessarily do this, but like, I wanted to show you something that you can use even regardless of the database in the future. If you are loading from one database to another, as long as DataFactory can connect to that database, this solution will apply. So here's I already have the link service set up, the links that I set up. I'll use a dynamic one. even though it does. I don't think it matters. I don't think, because I'm gonna run a query to get the max of the. Gonna click the query, use the query mode, and then I'm gonna get the max of the target table. So what table do I want to use for now? I'm gonna do for the customer table, right? Let me see. That's what I did here. Uh, yeah, this is the target table I did. I'm gonna copy the same query. So all I'm doing is this. I'm getting the max. Can everyone see the query, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm getting the max value
Yes.
um, from the target table, but don't get confused. The additional thing I'm doing is to cast this value to date data type instead of date time data type, because I want to keep the example simple. I don't want the time component. I just want the date component. So everyone knows the difference between date and date time, right? Date, okay, the date data type has the date, like January 1st, 2024. But the date time has the same date, but then has a time component like 12 p.m., 12:55 p.m. with some seconds and milliseconds. Does that make sense?
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, makes
difference
sense.
between
Yes, sir.
date and date time. So all I'm doing is I'm doing using the cast function on the max of the last modified date to get the date. Then I'm aliasing that with the name called the incremental date. So I can do a preview and you see what I get. This is what I get, right? The column name is incremental date. This is the date that is the max of my target table. I already have this target table created, right? So now all I have to do now is to, like, when you're developing pipeline, you can just go ahead and run it. I already did the preview data. I know it's running, so I don't expect anything else. I expect it to run, but I'll run it as well, and you can see I run it, and when I click the output portion, this output arrow, right? I see the value like coming out like this. So it's a bit, it's something to bear in mind, right? Because when you when I when I did the preview data, you see those time the time component didn't appear, right? I think you guys noticed this, right? There's no time
Mhm.
component, right? But when I see it in the data factory output, the time component, this is the time component that appears. It's added it for us. So
Mhm.
sometimes these tools, they behave like this. They behave the way you don't expect. And to be honest, it's not something that you always have control of or you can change. So you just have to work around it. So with this will cause a bit of an issue because um, I didn't want this, but it's putting it for me. So what I have to do is I'll have to handle that later. But for now, at least I validate that there's something coming out from this lookup activity that I can use in the later stage. So let me go ahead and use the store this in the variable, because that's my goal. Is I want to run this storing in a variable so I can use it to filter my source table. So let me look for my set variable activity. So here's my set variable activity. I'm gonna connect this to this on success. So once it's successful, I'm gonna run this set variable. And here, I'll create a variable, call it whatever I want. Let's say I call it incremental date. I'll leave it as a string data type. Say okay. And then here's the thing, right? The value of this variable should come from this, right? Right, from this output of the lookup activity. So how do I do that? How do I pass that into this set variable activity? I have to click this add dynamic content. And here you can see I have the outputs of the previous activity available for me. So I just have to click the, one of these things. So to know which one it is, right, which one it should be, you can look at it from here. As you can see, output first row incremental date. So you kind of want to search for the one that's closest to that, and you can try your luck, right? If one doesn't work, you can try another one. But this is the one I'm gonna use because that's matching the hierarchy I saw in the output. And I selected that one, and now what I can do is I can test it to see, oh, is it actually giving me what I want? So I can run it because sometimes you're not sure, right, if it's working or not. So I can go ahead and run it to see if it works or fails. It's running. So it failed. Cannot do it. All right. Only supports types of strings. So it's complaining about the type is a it's a type of string. The variable is a type of string, but the value that I'm passing to it is an object. So it means that this is not really what it's looking for. And at this point in the real world, you might end up Googling a little bit, trying different things. But because I've done this before, I can go ahead and refresh if this is my Google right here, because I've done this before. So I just want to see what I put. So I have to put, it turns out that I have to put this thing, this indexing, and um, I have to put this as well. So I'll come to the source string later, but let me do that for now. So I have to put 0, and let me see, and I have to put, because let me see the output of this increment today. So and this should be a little bit familiar to you guys, because this is the way we index dictionaries, right? Remember when we learned dictionary in Python?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's like nested dictionary. So yeah, so this turns out to be the first element in this array, and I have to get this value, the key, reference this key to get the value of this. So now that I've done that, I've done that, I can now rerun this to see what I get. And it's still failing, unfortunately. All right, so you know what? There's one thing that is throwing it off. This first row only. So I'm gonna check that box. I'm gonna remove that checkbox. I'm gonna use value because that's what I did last time. Let me before I run, let me run that and show you again. This is where, like, as a data engineer, right, like you get a lot of frustration because it's not straightforward to figure these things out because they don't make it too simple. But with some googling and trying different things, it ends up working. So I removed that first row thing, and you see that the different format is here. You don't see the first row key, but key in the output. And when we went here, you could see that I mentioned the value, mentioned the 0 as the first element. Again, output value. This is an array, so the first element, this is the key. And now I can see, when I click this variable, I can now see that this is the value I'm getting in the variable. So everyone saw that, right? What I did here.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so again, just it requires copying and pasting, it requires being careful. That's why I like to do these things real time, because sometimes when you're doing this, you might forget to uncheck this box and you're getting an error, even though you're thinking you're repeating what I did. But just remember to follow exactly what I'm doing here and learn from it. So now that we got the value, I still have the problem of this thing, right? This extra thing in the variable. I don't want this time component. So what I have to do is to apply what? What have we learned in SQL? We can what? Do substring, right? We can do a string manipulation where we can just get the first, if only want the the date component, regardless of the date, right? If I can get the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I can get the first 10 characters, I'll be good. Does everyone agree? If I can just limit this string to get only the first 10 characters, I will not get the rest of it. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, as you can see, there are functions that Data Factory gives you to do things. Like, they have so many functions, like that's not what we can go over in this boot camp. But what I can show you is at least one of them, and hopefully you can apply the rest from your intuition, or you can also Google and look at the documentation. So the way it works is you have to click. Number one is what I like to do is I can keep the cursor somewhere and click it. And then once I click it, it comes out and you see it says syntax error. So what it needs is this @ sign. It likes to have an @ sign. And once I put the @ sign, I can hover over the function and it can tell me what is the format. Or you can also Google this thing as well. If you Google ADF or DataFactory substring function, you can also get the syntax of how what it works, or like how it works. Everything is kind of slow today, but you can see the syntax here. But anyway, so what I have to do, I know that is looking for the string number and number. So I will basically take this whole thing, because this is my input string. I will put that in the first argument, comma. The index starts from 0 and goes all the way to 10. And I'll remove this part. And I will say OK. And I'll run it again and check the results. So did everyone see what I did? How I'm able to get the first 10. You can see that, right? It cut off that time.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
yeah. So that's what I've done. So this is the first part. Now I'm happy. I captured the ETL cutoff date based on what the max date of the target. All I have to do now is to filter the source records, right? So again, I'll drag my copy activity. The next step is to get my copy activity. Source, again, is the SQL anyone, because I'm using the query mode. So the query is what I would say. So this is the thing, right? Now, notice that I have to write a query, but then I have to write the query like this: select star from sales LT dot customer, right? Where I believe last modified date is greater than or equal to the value that's stored in this variable, right? So how do I pass that into this query? That's a challenge, right? So we have to, again, go back to using the dynamic content, because that's the way it can help us pass the values from data factory into the query. And this is what we call dynamic expression, like, because we are building this query parameter dynamically by combining the query that we are writing with a value that is stored in the data factory. So to do that, I will have to use something called the concatenate function. Concatenate function. You can see it's looking for a string. So the string will be, I'll say select star from sales LT dot customer where last modified date You get an equal to. Then what do? I need to concatenate these two with the what? What do you think? The variable, right? Because this was that
Right.
has the date. Yeah, the date that I'm looking for, right? So, but if I do this, right, would this work? You'll see that it will not really work. But this will not work because right now, even though it looks like it should work, the problem is normally when in SQL, why is this thing not working? All right, now it's good. Normally in SQL, right, when I'm writing something, I am when I try to filter something, right? Let's say sales LT customers where last modified date. I think the column name is modified date, right? Oh no, see what the column name. Yeah, modified date. So you see that when I try to filter for a date, this is where you need to test things, right? I don't just say 2024 0102, right? Would this work? Would this work, guys? Oh,
Yes, sir.
it's actually working. I'm surprised. It shouldn't normally it shouldn't work. Um,
Mm.
because maybe because of the editor is smart enough. Normally it expects me to put it in a string with quotes, pass it as quotes, like because if not, it assumes it's a integer. It's like doesn't understand it. So and you see that issue. Let me continue. I think you see that issue now. Let me continue. Let me show you what happens. So sync. I will connect the sync. You guys already know. Sales LT. What's our sync? What table should we load the data to? Anyone
Customer
remember?
table.
Customer table, but yeah, but is it the target or the stage? What do we say?
Mm.
Should be the stage, right?
The stage, yes, the stage.
Because that's the first thing. The source to
Yeah.
stage, then stage to target. So we're gonna put the stage customer. Let me find the table name. Stage, actually DBO stage customer. DBO stage customer. And one of the things that we also did was do what? We put it right behavior inside. What do we do there?
Auto create.
Auto create
To
table.
create table.
But that's when the table doesn't exist. But we kind of know this table already exists because we ran it before. But what do we have to make sure that, um, like, what do we have to do to make sure that this table doesn't keep piling up data every time?
Truncate. Truncate.
Okay, right?
Truncate.
Yeah. So now, and I gave you some truncate query. So this query is good because I you can directly just say truncate table, but I like to have this way because it's gonna check that if it's the very first time that this table doesn't exist, it's not gonna truncate it. But if the table already exists, it's gonna truncate it. This query helps us to avoid uh, any failure for the first time we run this pipeline that this state table doesn't exist. Anyway, so now let's go ahead and see if we can run this and see if this will work. Let's see if it will fail. Like I'm suspecting it should fail. Let's see. Okay. Cute, cute, in progress. Oh, it's actually worked. All right, it's actually worked. So it's actually working to my surprise. Let's see. But
So you think there was an error?
no, I mean, it's not complaining about having a quote. Like normally, you see, like how did it read so much data though? Okay. Let me see what's going on. This shouldn't read so much data, right? This is my doubt. Because you see, this is the problem I'm telling you, right? This is not really correct because all these dates, if you see, this is part of again doing a ETL, right? You are running something and it's working, doesn't mean it's correct, right? That you get a success, it doesn't mean it's correct because who can tell me what's going on here that's wrong with this? Who can tell me?
The dates went from being um it went from numbers to, and then there's a total swap to 2024.
Not really. Like what I'm saying, this query, right, that I'm running here, is it giving the result you expect? So I'm saying, give
No,
me the data. Go ahead, Kalisi.
oh, because I see a lot of 2005 and 2006.
Exactly. So like, because this is greater than, right, greater than equal to, it shouldn't be giving me
Right.
2005 and stuff. But
Oh, sure. Yeah.
if I put um this thing, right, you see it's giving something that is more correct, right? So that's the problem, right? Like you have to be careful. Like even though something works, your pipeline works, always make a cross check to make sure you are getting what you expect. Don't just assume it's working because it's succeeding. Always test. That's the point. That's what we call unit testing. Yeah, unit testing your pipeline, make sure it's working. So here, obviously, this is not working. So that means we need to modify this to add the quotes. So one of the challenges with the adding the quotes, because the quote is a special character that's already used, to add the quotes is a bit weird. So if I just put one quote, is complaining because it's thinking that I'm just creating another string. So I have to make it 2 quotes so that it can capture the first beginning quote, the first beginning single quote. Then towards the end, I have to now make another couple of quotes. And this, I still don't understand why I have to put 4 quotes for it to interpret as only 1 quote. I don't know if you guys understand. So the first quote that I put before the comma was this one. Then I had to put another one at the end. As you can see, the first one I only had to do 3. Like I had to do quote, quote, quote for it to pick up this one. But after they put in the date, I had to put 4 quotes. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't make sense, like, looking at it, but that's the only way to do it for it to work, for you to get the result you're looking for. And you can test it by running the pipeline again. And you can see, like, in the input, you see that now the quotes came correctly, right? Before, the quotes were not there. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, yeah. So now that I've done that, this has to make it work. And now you can see, when I look at it, I see that, okay, only 1 record was read. It makes more sense. And it was read into the staging table. So this is how we did the first part. Now, the last part is to run the merge statement, because now we have gotten the data. We captured the cutoff date from the target table, use it to filter the source, and load it into the staging table. Now we have to go from staging table to the target table using a merge statement. And all I have to do is find the component or activity that can do that for me. Which one? Do you guys remember which one I should use? The script tags. Script tags. If I want to run a script, that's what I want to use. I want to run the merge statement script. Right, so again, I select the link service of the database table. And the query that I use, I already showed you guys the query. I'll copy it from this is the merge statement query that we already kind of worked on. I'll copy it in here. Again, it's very straightforward. This can be time consuming, because you have to mention the target source, mention the joining key, right? Is join on custom ID, which is the primary key. When not matched, it's gonna insert. And I mention all the column names. When matched, it's gonna update. And I mention all the column names it's gonna update with. So that is it. That is how to do the incremental load, the first design, right? Like if I run this, you see it's gonna work. This is the first design. This is the way I personally like to do it. It's very, it's a little bit elegant this way, because one of the advantages of doing things like this, I don't really have to worry about the time zone. Sometimes if you are getting data from a different system, right? Um, and you're using an ETL to, let's say, if your data is time zone sensitive, right? Like let's say your pipeline is located in Pacific region, but your data is in Eastern region. So if you get the system date in your pipeline, you will get the time of the region that you are in, right? But let's say your source system is in Eastern, so there will be 2 hour difference or 3 hour difference, right? There will be 3 hour difference from your ETL and the system date. So if you do that, you see that you might get some missing records. But with this approach, I don't have to get any date from the ETL. I'm literally getting the date from the target. That's exactly, I know that because all the data I'm loading is from the source to the target. I'm not manipulating anything. I'm not modifying any dates. So whatever is stopped loading in the target, if I get the max value, I'm getting where I last stopped. And I use the same date and go back and filter the source data and get the records from there. So it's a bit of a clean way to avoid any issues. But the downside of this approach, like I posted this question on LinkedIn, and people are saying that if you have a big data volume, running this, because we have to run the max, right? We are running a max function. It might take time, but I don't think it takes that much time. But they say though, this my running a max can be time consuming. And then some people also want the flexibility to say, well, what if you want to go back, you want to do the incremental load, but you want to do it instead of doing it from the max value, you wanted to do it somewhere. Let's say I want to get the last 30 days of data, right? Something like that. You want to make it more flexible. Say, let's say at some point you want to be like, I want to get just last 30 days or last 60 days. Maybe something happened and you wanted to get last 60 days of data and reload it. With this approach, you're not gonna be able to, you have to now go back and change. It's not easy to just be like flexibly like change the cutoff date. It requires you to open up this pipeline and make changes, which is not uh, it's not easy in the real world. So that's the disadvantage, right? Uh, but most of the time, it works. It works from a lot of use cases.